My guest today is Chaya Raichik. She's a mother, wife, and social media comedic sensation who was born and raised in LA and now lives with her husband and 2 children in London. When Chaya's not wrangling her 2 littles, you can find her donning wigs and creating laugh-out-loud funny content and musings about life across Instagram and TikTok. The Chaya you'll hear today is not affiliated with the controversial figure Chaya Raichik lives of TikTok. They are unaffiliated, and this podcast and our views do not reflect hers. Enjoy.
Oh, we're starting.
Okay, welcome in today, Chaya.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm seeing you in such a formal setting.
I know, this
like
does
normally
feel...
I would see you at dinner, we would be drinking.
I know.
Now we're having like San
I know.
Pellegrino. It's
And we didn't have like a precursor of like casual hang. We went straight
into this because it's such short time. I'm here for 5 minutes, but
I know. But I'm so glad we can make this work. So
this was part of one of the reasons why I came.
I know.
Yeah, you pushed me.
Yeah.
You did.
I mean, actually, now you're my second guest to come from out of town. I feel really like,
look at you.
I feel humbled by that. Actually.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm obviously family first.
Of course.
But then you were the one that's like, go see your family and we'll do the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. I mean, we're still getting ahead of ourselves, but I think it's interesting for your audience, especially, to see you in a different light outside of you speaking about your life, but rather getting to, you know what I mean? This is a totally new platform for you.
Plus, I never really get overly vulnerable on camera.
Right.
So most of the time, and what I find interesting is that I get a lot of messages from people that say like, I know so much about you. I feel like I know you. I feel like I know you. That's like the tagline. I feel like I know you.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I haven't really shared much concrete, real stuff.
Yeah.
I share the relatable stuff that everyone will relate to, but there's always the stuff that like is personal to you.
Sacred. We're going to cover that.
Yeah, exactly.
But perfect intro. Give us a little color to your background.
Okay.
A little bit about like your family life growing up. What was it like?
So I grew up here in LA my whole life in this exact neighborhood.
Yep.
And I am the second oldest. I'm one of 5.
Okay.
So I was kind of just very insular. I grew up in an ultra-Orthodox family. My parents are Chabad. I went to Chabad High School, and I kind of just stayed in my own little bubble. I was never an extrovert. And what's funny is when I started this, it was like the biggest shock in the world to the people that know me. Right? It's, because
that's like, we're jumping ahead, but
yeah,
you know what?
Yeah.
But fine. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But we'll get there.
We'll get there. But, because I have like an older sister who is, more of an extrovert, and I have a younger sister who's more of an extrovert, and I was always the forgotten one. Like, oh, there's a middle sister between the 2 of you. And that would happen all the time. I didn't even know that Devor and Sarah have sisters, my older sister and my younger sister. Right. And so this side of me is a very, very recent new thing. But growing up, this was not me at all. I kept to my sisters, my mom. They were my best friends. I had 1 or 2 other really close friends. And where do I go from there? I guess do I go from there?
No, that's good color. That's you.
Good color,
so one of
right.
ooh, it was like a little floaty. All right, that's good. I like that.
Yeah?
That gives us a little context. I feel like it's important for people to get context about where you come from and who you are, right? Like,
I mean, people know that I was married before.
Yeah.
So, I went to seminary. I spent 2 years in Italy.
Just the seminary being, because some of my audience doesn't know some of our...
Right. So what would you call it? Like
I like to call it like an Orthodox an Orthodox finishing school.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. It's just like an excuse not to start college right away. You just get 1 year off.
Yeah.
So I was there for 2 years in Milan, and then I came back, and right away, you know how the Orthodox world works. You got to start dating, and I had... Actually, I don't know if I want to talk about that. Okay, I don't want to get into that side, but
married and divorced young.
Yes, I got married to the first guy that I officially dated, and then got divorced young. Was married for less than a year, and then came back to LA. I didn't know what to do with myself because I'm not and we're going to talk about that later also about that I was only relationship oriented. I didn't care about girlfriends.
Okay.
Ever.
Right.
And so that was also a new thing that I had to grow into moving to London. So I met my current husband, 8 years after my divorce. So I got married at 28.
Okay.
Moved to London. Never in my life thought I would leave LA. I actually rejected a lot of men based on the fact that I would have to move elsewhere and not out of the country, like out of the state.
I mean, I wish I had the opportunity to reject a lot of men.
But were you in the shitta scene? Were you
No.
in the matchmaking scene? Right.
No.
So when you're in the matchmaking scene, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like
Right. Men are being served forward.
exactly
Like a hot
exactly
buffet.
right. So moving to London was never in my agenda.
So that's actually my next thing. Like, what was that transition like? You're an LA girl through and through, living in LA your whole life, and suddenly you're plucked, and you're someone who's super close to your parents, super close to your mom, super close to your... What was that like, just being ripped out of everything? The
It was
cocoon.
hell. It was hell. It was absolute hell. I suffered for many years. I mean, I'm there for 5 years. So when I say many years, that's pretty much the majority of the years that I'm there.
A lot of suffering.
There's a lot of suffering. I was extremely lonely. I didn't know how to make friends because that wasn't my forte. And also the cultural differences of LA people versus London people, as you know, because you're also familiar with a lot of British people, that it's a very different mentality.
I don't think there could be two more opposite mentalities.
Completely.
Therapy, self-help,
Yes.
astrology,
Yes.
chill vibes.
And also just being so open. And I think a lot of the people that I met were very taken aback at how open I was and how I had no filter and how I'm very comfortable saying like, oh, I spoke to my therapist last week.
Right.
You spoke to a therapist. You know what I mean? It's like there's certain things that you don't talk about.
Do you feel like that's changed a little bit?
Yes, it is changing. It is changing, but there will always be this. It's funny because like LA kind of has a reputation for being fake. I actually think British people.
Yeah.
I mean, I love British people. It's not fake, but it's more, let's filter, let's keep composure, let's not divulge everything, let's keep ourselves together. Not everyone has to know everything.
It's the royal family effect.
Right, exactly. Whereas LA people, the more you divulge, the cooler you are.
So true.
Right. It's like vulnerability is trendy.
Journey the other day, and like I saw like my great grandmother who told me actually you might be gay. Like that's the LA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in London, it's just like, would you like tea?
Yeah, exactly. And if somebody is gay, it's like everyone else will discuss it besides for
Right.
the person and subject. Yeah.
I mean, I was married to a Brit. I'm
Right,
currently with a Brit. You're with a Brit.
I'm with a Brit. Yes.
The producer right here is a British mother.
Yeah.
So, just kidding. We're not supposed to break that third wall. So, making friends, challenging.
It was hard. It was hard. It was also the rain, the weather, and I gave birth to my son very shortly after I got married. So I dated for 10 months, quickly got married, had my son a few months, shortly after. And then before I know it, it's like I am alone, no family, no siblings, by myself in London, no friends, no support. I had to do everything by myself and just figure out this life by myself in a new country. And it was really, really hard. And also, I'm not the type that likes to ask for help because I consider myself a very capable and self-sufficient person. So it was very humbling for me to feel like, since when can I not do something for myself? I can. So I didn't ask for the help, but I really needed it. And I wish I did ask for that help because, but at the end of the day, who would I have even turned to?
Right.
That was the sad part.
God.
So that was the hard part.
That's tricky.
Yeah, it was really
What
tricky.
do you think was like, when did it start breaking? When did it start changing that you started infiltrating, kind of finding your people? Because I see you, you're out.
Yeah,
You have your
now,
little...
thank God, thank God, I finally have a nice group of friends, and which is amazing. But it took so much time, and I'm okay with them listening to the podcast because I tell them straight to their face. I'm like, you were a bitch. I don't know if can you say that?
Yeah, I put these are explicit.
Okay.
I mean, I write explicit.
But I'll tell them straight up. I'm like, you were like a straight up bitch to me. Like, and I'll tell them, I said, why were you so? And they would admit themselves. They said, listen, this is kind of like the Northwest London mentality where we're not so open to making new friends.
NW3, baby. Are you an NW3?
Yeah, literally, literally.
Right. So, I mean, okay, that's, I do think like anyone who's moved to a big city, a new city, a big city, anything, especially later in life.
Yeah.
It's like finding your people is hard. Any tips, any advice for people who like need to make friends later in life, and especially in a new place or not in a new place?
So whenever I do my Q&As on Instagram, it's one of the number one questions that I get asked, especially when I open up about how difficult it is to make friends at an older age. I was shocked to see how relatable that feeling is.
Yeah.
And I got flooded with messages from people saying, I feel the same. I had to move to New York. I had to move to Miami. And where are my friends? Where are my people? Where you never thought you actually needed it because you take for granted where you come from. It's so easy.
Yeah.
You have your friends, you have your family, you have your mom, you have your sisters, and suddenly none of those people are there.
I know.
It's a huge shock.
You didn't do this, I don't think. But one of the things that I think is like a great tip is like joining a studio, not a gym, because gyms are different, and it's a nay to walk up to someone at a gym. Like little Pilates studios, little spin studios, little yoga. They're predominantly female, and it's like it's intimate.
Your little
That was like for me worked in LA.
I think it's community.
But did your friends end up being Marcus's, your husband's?
All of them,
Right. Okay,
all
so
of
they're
them.
your husband's friends' wives.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I've yet to meet anyone organically on my own.
So you don't have any tips.
So I don't have tips I don't have tips. I got very lucky, and in the end I ended up making really close friends with a few of Marcus's friends' wives.
Okay.
So, but still, nonetheless, that's sometimes you get screwed in life where you have your new spouse and you don't like any of the wives that you are now forced to become friends with.
Oh, 100%.
That
It's a
happens all the
crapshoot.
time.
Like you don't know.
Exactly. You have no idea. And suddenly your new spouse is introducing you to all his friends. And it's like, well, hey, why don't you have coffee with all the wives together? And you meet them and you're like, oh, this is not.
I can think of a couple of reasons why I wouldn't have coffee with them.
Right. So, yeah.
So talk to me about like what was the great thing that happened that took you from heavily private, super. When I first met you, you were so quiet, so shy.
Wasn't I the forgotten one? You knew Devorah.
I wouldn't say the forgotten one.
I was. You knew Devorah.
I didn't
You
even
knew
know
my
you.
older sister.
I guess you were forgotten.
Yeah, and you knew my younger sister. It's a thing.
Right.
I'm not just saying.
What took you from a super private life to now you are literally camera facing every day?
I know.
What happened?
Well, I had 2 children under the age of 17 months. So they were little tiny babies at home.
Yeah.
It was lockdown.
That's right.
It was COVID. And I talk about being alone in a country. Like you don't feel any more alone than you do in COVID, in lockdown. And I'm with my 2 babies just trying to survive. And I was losing my mind. I was like, how much cleaning and organizing can you do? Eventually your house is immaculate from all the time you're spending in it. And then and then what? And then what are you going to do next?
Right.
So I actually have to give credit to Leah Luxon, our mutual friend, because she's the one. I made one reel and she says, you need to
do more.
You need to do this.
What was your first reel?
It was for you. My first reel ever was for you. The flight of
the flight of fancy.
The flight of fancy.
I did not know.
Yes, that was my first reel I ever made. Was for you. You said, challenge yourself.
It was New Year's.
It was New Year's.
I dressed up in like whole party outfits and did a photo shoot.
Beautiful photo shoot
because we were stuck.
Yeah, we were stuck. So you did the most like extravagant, spectacular photo shoot. I was so inspired by it. And then you gave the challenge, and I took it very seriously because when was the last time I got dressed?
Yeah.
Like when was the last time I put
any
on
of
makeup?
us got dressed?
Or anyone, when was the last time like I took out any of my beauty products or shaved my legs? Like, I hadn't even shaved my legs. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this flight of fancy challenge. And that was my first one. And Leah messaged me and she says, you've got to do this.
Yeah.
And it was January 1st.
She's so good like that.
Yeah.
She's so good like that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. January 1st of 2020.
So how funny is this?
This actually is so perfect.
Right.
I can't even explain it because I love that. Okay. So, all right.
And then it just took off.
So, and you... predominantly you were leading with comedy. Comedy was like that's what you run with.
Complete predominantly. Like there was nothing else besides that. At that time, in the first year, I would say, I never spoke on camera. I never really shared anything besides a reel. And I was doing one reel a day.
Okay.
So every day I would just post that reel and that's all I did.
Okay.
And the reels took a life of its own. I didn't have to put myself out there. I didn't have to sell myself. And that was what was amazing about it. I was like, I don't have to form a million connections with like a whole bunch of strangers. I can just
Pre-recorded content.
yeah, pre-recorded content. I had fun creating it and you have fun enjoying it. It's like this mutual enjoyment. So you're benefiting and I'm benefiting because I get to do something fun with my day and you get to watch it. But that's not sustainable because then eventually people want more. They want to see more. So that's when things imploded. But
Well, that's my next question. What do you think makes great content?
oh gosh. From the feedback I get, I feel like people just want to see something that's real.
Yeah.
That's from the feedback I get.
So
I
it
don't
doesn't
know if
matter the genre.
But it's hard to say because I have a very targeted audience. I'm sure people that are looking for beauty and fashion and all that kind of stuff, they're not going to be following me because that wouldn't be
Right.
my target audience. But for me specifically, the feedback I get is people just want real.
Yeah.
They want relatable and they want real and they want to know that when I'm watching something, it's like, hey, you know what? I had a day like that. Or I remember when that was just like me. Or I remember feeling exactly the same way that you felt.
Right.
So
Yeah, okay. I guess you're right about that. I mean, it's such a broad question, actually, but you're probably right. There probably just is the content that gets. I mean, that's why, like, if you think about all of the greats of our Instagram ancestors, like you have your Remy Bader with the realistic hauls, like the try-ons, right? Like all that stuff went viral because it was like, like a plus size girl trying on clothes, and she was like, "This is how it look." And then
Remy Bader.
yeah, Remy Bader.
Yeah. Right.
Like
yeah.
that's the content that soared in COVID.
Yeah, she exploded. And also I noticed even on TikTok, the makeup artists that started to explode were not the typical stunning faces.
Right.
You know, like there's a makeup artist, Michaela, who has, I mean, I think close to 20 million followers. She is not the atypical face you would see as someone who does their makeup because normally it's a pretty girl that's making herself look even prettier.
Right.
But
nobody needs that.
Right. And you were finally seeing someone real transform herself with the makeup. So I think people just were eating that up.
Yeah.
They want to see something like that.
What inspires your content? How do you decide what you're going to film? Like, does it come to you in the shower? Does it come to you in a dream, in a purple haze? Like, because you come up with these videos sometimes. I'm like, what prompted that? You know what I mean?
Well, the family stuff, the mom stuff, the kid stuff, I don't have to think about it. I just have to execute it. Like, I just have to literally perform what happened in my day. And 99% of the time, it's based on real shit that's happened.
Yeah.
So that's the mom stuff. And then, when I do the impersonations, that's also like there's some, I've done I've done a few people. So the people that inspire me, and it's never, and I want to make this clear because I know there's been a bit of controversy surrounding it where how do you think they feel? But I mean, you could say for yourself, like, I think I do it in a way where I only impersonate people that I actually love.
Right.
And
I think that's the clincher.
That's the clincher. I would never.
It has to be out of love and
out
not
of love.
Out of jest.
I wouldn't. And a few times people have made suggestions of other people that I should impersonate, and I don't actually like that person.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this would just come off as like spiteful and hateful and mockery. And I never want to make a mockery out of someone. I just want to be able to laugh with you.
Yeah.
Where like I'm sure when you watched it, it's like
I love it's to date one of my favorite, maybe because it's about me and everyone loves themselves.
Right.
But I loved what I think it's funny, and I watch your impersonations of other people, and I always think they're funny. I never think they're.
I try to be. There's such a fine line with like doing it tastefully and doing it offensively, and I'm always very honed in on.
It's the internet is always
So far so good. So far, no one that I've done has taken offense to it, and everybody has loved it. But that's also been a huge part of my whole gig. I mean, that's why I own about 20 wigs.
I know you really have a wig.
I have a
collection
lot of
now.
wigs.
You're like Moira from Schitt's Creek.
I'm more Moira from Schitt's Creek. For someone that doesn't cover her hair, I probably have more wigs than like the average person who has a shadel.
You used to cover your hair, right?
I did.
Okay.
I did. And then
I like this. This is a vibe.
It is. And I think that's also another reason why a lot of people try to identify me or to categorize me, because I don't feel like I fall under a very specific category because I don't cover my hair.
Right.
You know, I don't always dress the most modestly. I try to on camera
Yeah.
out of respect for like my family and my community, but I think people know, you know,
Yeah.
people know. But there's also an extremely spiritual side to me. And a lot of people I find, which I find so humorous, is that everyone needs to just be categorized. Like, which category do you fall under? Are you under box 1, 2, or 3? I'm so confused. You're not under 3 or 1. So
No.
which one are you?
I talked about this last week with Perla, actually, because, you know, she was talking about this, like how our community really wants to put us in a category of some sort.
I don't know what that's all about.
And we fall outside of the typical box, so it's a little
But
hard.
there is a box, and it's my box.
Right.
And you have a box. That's
love
your
that.
box. Like, there's a million boxes. Why does it have to only be like 10 boxes? I feel like we've limited ourselves to only X amount of boxes. And I think we should expand that and say, you know what, there's actually way more boxes than I thought there were.
Yeah. This question's like 2 parts. Like, one, like, what's your why? Like, why do you show up on the internet? And has it changed from when you started?
So I was afraid of this question because you know how we always like to have answers and we like to have, and I knew this question was going to come because it's a very important question.
Right.
And you talk about that always, is like, know your why.
Well, only because it's like, for me, otherwise I'd have no drive. I'm like,
exactly.
it's exhausting and depleting otherwise.
Exactly. So my why, it dwindles. Like I suffer with my why a lot, and
Same.
I struggle with my why a lot. So I don't have an answer about my why, because there's some days, to be honest and frank, where I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
And there's some days where I live for it and I'm just like, this is my creative freedom. This is my creative expression. This is where I get to just be myself, and, well, not be myself, but be an extension of myself.
Or even completely not yourself, but still be a why.
Or challenge myself, because this is not normally me to face a camera and do something so outlandish where either people are going to look at me and be like, you're certified, or this is hilarious. You know, it could go either way. But there's also other days where I'm like, why am I still doing this?
Yeah, like where you don't know your why.
Right, so I don't know my why.
That's fair enough.
And it's hard. I think that's what makes it hard. And we speak about that all the time.
I know. I think for me, like where I guess I vacillate with my why is like, sometimes I have to be honest with myself that, like, is my why for a ton of external validation? And if I'm honest, of course that's a part of my why. Like we would be lying if we said we weren't here for external validation. Like, who shows up on the internet because they don't want external validation? But
I'm looking for more people to hate me.
Yeah, sometimes it'd be like that. But like, no, so like, but then but I try and balance it. And as I think you do also with like, but I also want to bring some joy or laughter, distract people.
Yes.
And if you could marry wanting to like bring laughter, bring comedic relief, you know, bring some familiarity. Like sometimes just the pattern of content brings like the consistency of our content or the categories that we cover bring, like how kids like to watch the same show again and again.
Yeah.
I don't want to like dumb it down because people are adults, but like sometimes just like, I know when I'm having a stressful day or whatever, I'll go to the content that I know is consistent because I'm like a little kid watching Sesame Street. I'm like, I know this person's gonna like try on clothes or so like
it's true.
But like if you could marry the external validation with also I get to bring comedic relief, distraction, fun, then is that so bad?
But I love what you said before, because I think that is my drive, is the feedback. Because I mean, what is a performer without an audience?
Of course.
So it's all about the audience. So I think for me, the days, and there's a lot of days. I know that I love to post only like the hateful messages because I get such a kick out of it.
I love that you do that though.
I love it just because, and people say, don't listen, you're so much better than that. Don't take offense to it. I'm like, oh, no. I'm good. I'm really, really good.
You have really thick skin.
No, you have to.
I don't. You like really take it like, you take it like
I'll like send you screenshots that are too bad to even post on the internet.
But I feel like it's a punch in the stomach and you're like, LOL.
Right.
And I'm like,
because I think, first of all, I think it's also my husband. He's shockingly mentally healthy for a British person, which is shocking, but he always tells me what other people feel about you is none of your business.
So true.
And he always says that's their problem. It has nothing to do with you. It's not your business. What right do you have to even be bothered by someone else's issues? Even
really
if it
cool
is about you,
perspective.
it has nothing to do with you. So I look with such different lenses now at these messages I get. Like sometimes I will get a nasty message and I'm like, oh, bless their heart.
Bless their little
Bless
heart.
their heart. Oh, like
I saw like a funny meme about that, like some interesting ways to say F you. And someone was
Right.
like, I love that for you.
I love that for
And actually,
you.
I think bless your heart was one of them too,
Right.
which was like such a middle finger, like bless you.
But then those are the days also that I'm like, why am I still even doing this?
Right.
But then on the flip side, when I get those messages where people literally tell me, like, I went through a year of depression, and I mean, I've gotten some messages that are heavy, and I'm, your content changed my life. Because of you, I've left the house, or I'm trying to turn my life around, or you put a smile on my day, or every morning I go online and I look forward to seeing your content. When I see that, I'm like, the people need me. The people need me. I'm doing this for the people.
See, I'm so self-deprecating. I'm like, every day I'm like, nobody needs me. Nobody gives a shit about my
there's
content.
those days too, of course.
I know, but
that's
yeah,
that's the why question.
right. That is the
There's many times, like, and I don't know if it's part of the questions, but we spoke about it yesterday about like being here now on vacation, and I'm not doing the funny stuff. So am I now useless?
right. And so I have two interesting like questions and perspectives about that. One is, how do you reconcile making because you generally run with comedy. How do you reconcile making comedic content when things in your personal life are not feeling funny? And two, because I've had to reconcile that also. And
Within myself and my own personal life?
yeah, like how do you know? Like, is there language you have with yourself? Is there a conversation you have with yourself, or is there like, do you know? Because like your content's generally, if you look through, like you have the same vein. Like it's comedic, lighthearted,
and life is not always
life is not always like that.
sure.
So like,
I laugh about it. I'm like, oh, I just had a panic attack 5 minutes ago, and I just posted this hilarious reel that got 5,000 likes, and like people are just writing to me, how do I get to be more like you? And I'm like, dude, like I was just like in bed with the blanket covered. I mean,
do the likes help with the panic attack? Like, does it take you off yet?
It almost makes me laugh, and I'm like, you have no idea, like. And so I really try. And that's why I like doing my Q&As, because sometimes the real questions come in and I like to dumb it down, where my life is not that funny. I like to put the funny content out there because I want to cheer other people up. And I guess that's part of my why. But some days where I will put up the funniest stuff is some of my worst days, where I had my worst day, where I struggled the most with my kids, or I struggled the most with my anxiety. And, we speak about that a lot as well, where we'll joke about it. I'm like, oh, I just like posted something that is soaring and I am having the worst day. And I just had to like, calm myself down. And meanwhile, everyone's saying like, I want to be more like you. And
are you public about like your struggle with anxiety? Does your audience know about it?
So now, because I've been very open about anxiety, especially since I've been talking a lot about cannabis, and when I was working with Shifra, and I talked about how I did a live about it and how it really helped me and it changed my life, and then that kind of just plummeted into a lot of questions on my Q&As now, because I try to do one at least once a week or once every other week. And there's a lot of other women that struggle with anxiety. So I get a lot of anxiety subject questions. And so I'm very open about it.
How does anxiety present for you?
Oh, like in every physical form. And
that's not even funny.
I get all of them.
I guess it is a little bit funny.
Yeah, in every physical form. It'll be like a stroke happening. But then like, oh, like today I'm having a heart. It's funny because I have a hairdresser who is also a hypochondriac, and
so we're fully saying we're using the H word.
Right, we're using the H word, and he's like a total hypochondriac, and he'll be like, what do you have today? I'm like, oh, I have throat cancer. What do you have today? He's like, oh, I have a brain tumor. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like oh
my God,
we're vibing today. So so I think it's since I was a little girl. Like this has just been a little guy hanging out on my shoulder. What does Tinks call it? Mr. Anxiety. I think
Oh
she calls it.
yeah, Mr. She does
Mr.
have
Yeah.
Mr.
So
Anxiety.
I actually have like a Mrs. just hanging.
A miss.
A miss.
Is she married?
A miss. Oh my God. Probably
Yeah.
not. She's probably a cat lady.
Oh my god, that.
Yeah. Like, segue.
So, Chaya just got a cat, and
No.
it's been a journey.
I'm fostering.
Fostering,
Yes.
right. Fostering to maybe adopt. So if you're listening and you potentially want a cat,
If
maybe
you want a cat, plug in.
Yeah.
This is our plug in.
So we touched upon this a little bit. Let's dive in. Like on days where you're posting self-deprecation, funny,
Yes.
people love it.
Yes.
Days where you're looking a little bit hot, a little
Part-time hot.
part-time
hot.
thriving, living your best life.
Like right now.
People no likey.
They don't like it.
They don't
like it. Majority don't like it. And I try to flip the script and think if I would like it, if there was somebody who I turned to make me feel better about my life, the self-deprecating person who posts, I mean, how many people post their children having tantrums and crying? Like I feel
Very
like I'm like
few.
probably
You're
one
very
of the only ones, right?
Yes.
Or like, just chaos. I post all the chaos and all the humor of life. And then suddenly I flip the script and it's like, you know what? I'm feeling myself today. I've got a nice outfit on. I'm in LA. The sun is shining.
Yeah.
I'm feeling good. I haven't felt this way in so long. I'm going to show off about it. I'm just, not show off. I want to take that back. It's not show off. It's like what we were talking about before. I want to feel validated.
Yeah.
Everybody comes online to feel validated.
I do.
I felt good. I'd like to get a bit of validation. It's
Zero. Zilcho.
zero, like minimal.
It's funny because sometimes I'll have a conversation with myself like, I am going to post this picture of me looking good and I hope I get validation.
Right.
And then I think to myself, is that bad? Is that dishonest? Is that like wrong? And I don't know the answer to that because we're blatantly looking for. Why are you posting a hot picture of
Why are you
yourself, right?
posting-
You want to be like, oh, MG, queen, slay, yes, gorgeous, that, right? Like, but I actually don't like when other people do it, but I do it.
Right. And the same. So I flipped the script and I'm like, if there was somebody that I was following for a specific purpose and suddenly she's just like posting where she's just looking like a model and she's totally unrelatable.
Yeah.
Would I like that?
I guess it's like, do you have to be relatable always?
Do you always have to
I
be
guess that's
relatable?
the overarching question. Does it always have to remain relatable? Although, but why can't, I guess doesn't everybody have moments where they feel beautiful or feel confident?
Hope so.
Like,
I hope so.
I guess that's the hope.
But the truth is, now that I think about it, there are some people that I follow on Instagram who I specifically follow because I'm rallying for her to live a better life. And I want to see that, right?
Okay.
And there are some people that I actually, it's almost like the underdog and I root for that person and I cheer that person on. And if I see that they're taking better care of themselves or they're doing a bit of self-care, it actually does make me happy. So do you have to be the underdog? It's like everybody likes the transformation.
Right.
It's always in the romantic comedies. It's like the nerdy schoolgirl and everybody loves to see when she
I guess
pulls
people
off those
don't
glasses.
see us as nerdy schoolgirls who are swanning and.
Do I need
you know what I mean? Like,
do I need to post like ugly selfies more? I mean,
that's why I like to post some really bad old pictures of myself. It's like,
but
it
I
has
have
been a
too.
journey.
But I have too, and still, but people could be so unforgiving. I remember when I was very open about the fact that a lot of people think that I'm naturally thin. And I always say, first of all, my genes work completely against me. I have major obesity in my family. And so
same.
this did not just like, I did not wake up this way.
Right.
I work my ass off. I really do. And if I ever let go, things would look very different. And so when I spoke about it and people asked if they could see photos, so I once was very open and I posted a whole bunch of photos, but all of them happened to have been either pregnancy or post-pregnancy. And I got a lot of hate for that. And they said, well, does that mean that like a pregnant woman is fat? Are you calling a post-pregnant woman fat?
Oh.
And I'm like, when I'm not feeling my best, I'm not taking selfies. So
Right.
I don't have a lot of photos
Right.
of when I didn't look that great.
Right.
So
or you didn't feel that
I don't
great.
have
Yeah.
like a whole feed on my phone that I could just scroll through like, oh, here's an ugly picture. Typically, you will take a picture of yourself when you feel your best.
Right.
So unfortunately, I don't have, but it's almost like sometimes I feel like they won't let me have it. And it's like, no. Like you'll
Yeah.
never understand. You will never understand the struggle.
Right.
So it does sometimes feel like a losing battle.
Yeah. I guess in that case, it's like you just
I stopped
Yeah,
talking about it.
yeah.
I actually stopped talking about weight because nobody wants to hear about weight from a thin girl. They
No.
only want to hear about weight from either like an average girl or an overweight girl because that just seems more relatable to them. But it's like, we don't want to see the thin girl talking about weight. So I just decided this is just not going to be my subject because it just doesn't read well.
Yeah, and that's okay. We
Yeah,
can't
it's just
cover
like-
every topic, right? Like
It's just like, you don't want to hear about money issues from like a wealthy person.
no, well, I don't ever touch weight because to be honest, I never really struggled with my weight and I just
Right.
feel like it's not my wheelhouse. I actually don't understand the struggle. I empathize greatly with people that that's their struggle because I have so low, like my impulse control is so low. Like I'm terrible at refraining. So like I actually have such great empathy for people that have to constantly live with worrying about that because like I know how much it's hard. It's really
very
hard.
hard.
So like there's some stuff we just don't touch.
No.
Which brings me to my next question.
Oh, God.
What happened between us?
Oh, are we getting into it? Are we getting into it?
I feel like we have to.
We have to get into it. Oh, my gosh.
So let's give a little bit of context.
A little context.
So
we
Chaya,
became COVID friends.
we became COVID friends.
Yes. We became like pen pals.
pen pals through Instagram. I made so many dear friends through Instagram. You know, I bash it all the time, but the truth of the matter is some of my closest friends today I met through Instagram in COVID.
In COVID.
So like I have so much to thank for, but that's when we really connected.
Yeah.
And we were talking on the phone. We were
I
voice
don't call
noting.
anybody on the phone.
Yeah.
We would talk for like 2-3 hours on the phone. I mean,
Yeah.
you were like my like girlfriend. Marcus would make fun of me.
Yeah.
I could tell you're speaking to Adel because you have like this pep in your step. And it was like dating, you know,
Yeah,
like when
we
it's
were.
a new friendship and it feels like dating because you have to like, I mean, dating when it's not like first dates, but when you're dating somebody that you really like, those first few months are the most exciting time.
Yeah.
So we had like such exciting times and
We did.
conversations, and especially since we were in the same, what would you call it, industry?
Yeah. Or genre category.
Genre, right?
Well, when I first met you, you weren't on Instagram. You weren't really on you weren't like Instagramming in capacity that you were.
No.
When we first connected, you were like I think much more like quiet. We're on Instagram. Were you?
Oh, that's a good
Yes,
question.
because
I wish
Flight
I
of
knew.
Fancy. That
was
your
my first one, and I
right.
was messaging you way prior.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yes.
So okay. So
Yes.
this is a perfect. So okay. I'll go first.
Go,
'cause I don't
go.
know. Okay.
Yes.
This is so hard.
It's weird. Yeah.
I've talked to people, but I've never actually had to like talk about my own feelings as it pertains to that guest. So I want to make sure I do this like
Okay.
justice. I think for me, because of the dynamic and how we met, and because it just started as like a parallel, like just a friendship that had nothing to do with like social media. It was like almost me and you in this little insular COVID world, and it was quiet. And in many ways, our friendship was something that took me away from the digital space, away from social media. We're able to connect like about life and motherhood and womanhood and right, like the Brit thing.
Sure.
And then when you started to take to the gram, it put you in a position like, of course, I realize now it's not the case, but it put you in a position that we became challengers, right? To some degree. It's very, now.
See, I still struggle with that because I did not think we were challengers at all. I
Right.
did not see.
I'm willing to accept that on my own part. Like, and like, I'm going to get there. Like,
I want to let you finish.
yeah, like
yes.
I definitely have had self-growth in this department. But like, so it put us then into like a different sphere than just friendship, right? Like you're coming online, I'm coming online. And then to some degree, a lot of your contents did mirror mine from like tablescapes, lifestyle, and then beauty and both. Suddenly, not only did I have a friend who was offline who came online, So it was almost like I got to had this like special little thing offline that was like, no, now she's in the same world. And then we were covering a lot of the same topics, and I felt like started to feel completely shut down, completely. I was really in a panic about it. Yeah. And I didn't talk to you about it. I just felt in a panic and actually tell you, A, I don't know that I had the language then. B, I don't know that I had the involvement or maturity then. And I was feeling pretty angry about it. And I didn't tell you.
I know.
And then it just festered and it grew. And then I just stopped talking to you, but in a pretty aggressive way, which I apologize. And I apologize for.
No, it was.
But I mean, we did the apology offline. But
yeah.
So that's what happened for me. Yeah. I think you had a completely different experience.
A completely different experience.
That's
but
wild.
I mean, the way that you did it in stages. You first told me, I think it would be healthier for our friendship if I don't follow you or your stories anymore, which already I felt so taken aback about because I didn't understand why. And I think at the time you didn't, maybe you didn't understand why. And you would always say, I just want to hear how your day was from your own mouth because we're friends.
I still can't watch your content.
I still have a hard time commenting or replying to your content.
But you didn't used to. So this is a different
It's a new thing where we don't really like interact that much on Instagram.
But I have a thing really about almost everybody in my life.
Yeah.
It's not just you.
Yeah.
I feel it cheapens the relationship to some degree. And also, I don't want to be triggered by your content. I don't want to be triggered. Yeah. I feel like the healthier thing for me is to not be triggered by your content. Right. Sometimes, like with friendships or even relationships, marriages, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
You have to find out what your triggers are and then do your best to avoid them so you could show up as your best self.
Yeah.
But okay, continue. Sorry.
No. So that was like the first part of it. And I didn't understand because, let me begin from my side.
Yeah.
So prior to Flight of Fancy, I feel like we should call it Flight of Fancy because that's when I started my Instagram.
Right.
I was such a huge fan because you were just to me, you were just like the ideal woman. You had the perfect home and the perfect tablescapes and the perfect lifestyle tips. And you were so eloquent and even in just the way you would speak. And I feel that your new followers don't get to really see because you've changed a lot also on the gram. You used to be a lot more snarkier and humorous, and you would come on and you would just be like the unhinged Adel. And everybody felt that. I think that's when everyone fell in love with you. And I'm sure a lot of your followers missed that because you've kind of taken a step back in that way. And I was just like, I want to be that girl. Like Marcus used to always tell me, like, I think you have a major girl crush on Adel. And I'm like, I do. She just seems like she just has everything together. But at the same time, she's not showing off about how she has everything together. It's just for some reason, it didn't feel like it was in this ostentatious way.
That's a very great compliment.
Yeah, it felt so down to earth, which is such a weird dichotomy. But so I would message you all the time. I even hired you for a face consult because I was getting my first Botox ever and I was so nervous. And so we spoke, and then I was once doing a tablescape. So I hired you again to do my tablescape for me. And it's funny because I sometimes get Instagram memories. And I used to just tag you in everything. Anytime I would think, I was like one of those followers that are so obsessed with you. I would just like tag you in everything I would do. Oh, I made a tablescape here. Adel look. Yeah. I was always seeking your approval. And then we suddenly became friends. And then
that's something that this is what I'm saying. We took there were so many dynamics, right? Offline to online. And you went from just I don't like to say follower. I like to say community member. We're community member to friend. I've had that with a few people. It's a leap, right? It's like becoming, this is going to sound so weird and gross, please, but just it's like when you become friends with your boss, right? Yeah. It's like, in some ways, it's like you're supposed to, you're relating to them.
Change.
We're not an unintimate friendship. Then we go to an intimate friendship.
Right.
So I think it made me more vulnerable, right? Because I opened myself up to you. Right. And then there were parts where I felt like I've opened myself up to her as a friend. And then now I completely am able to see it in a different light. And it's so sweet. And thank you for being so honest about
no, of course.
I feel like I don't deserve you to look up to me, but thank you for that. But
no, now I don't because I know you. No, this was when you were just like a figure, but like now I know you. I'm just
Right,
like,
no.
oh, okay, we're peers.
So maybe I missed that.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Like, I was scared. I actually felt like I was scared. I'm like, I opened myself up, and so she knows more about me. She has more access to me. And what if she takes some of my likeness and brings it to Instagram, and then, okay, so now as like a more adult woman, I've actually been able to dissect it and be like, even if it's the case, I'm not saying that you did. Even if it's the case, I don't become less of me if other people draw inspiration from parts of me.
Of course.
That was what I needed to get to.
Of course.
It's interesting because, you show up online
Yeah.
and you almost hope, like, you want to be an inspiration. You're like, well, isn't that why we show up? Like,
Of course.
but then when you've had this, like, with people that kind of like start to find your vibe and start imitating.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You're like,
that happened to me also. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then
like, we'll give some context. You don't have to name names, but like what happened with like
course.
when like
yeah. So like, I mean, obviously, there's not a lot of Jewish comedians that
comedian
that do skits on Instagram. And so, I saw that there were a few other people that started to surface and that they started to grow. And you have to do a self-check. You just have to check in with yourself, and you have to just, because there's always that moment of like,
Yep.
like, does that mean, you know what I mean? It's
Does
like,
it mean there's going to be less for me?
right, exactly. It's just like in Hollywood. It's like, does that mean like my time is over? Like, did I just get my 5 minutes of fame and now it's her turn?
That's such a good analogy.
Exactly.
Because it does, when someone else starts coming at your up under your heels, you're like, is this my time? Is my time up?
Is my time up? And then there's always a moment where I'm like, I think I'd be okay if it was my time up. I'm really tired. And then there's the other part that's like, but I want
pioneered
to
this
still,
industry.
exactly. I am
Yeah.
it's hard. You have, on the social space, when you're an influencer or when you put yourself out there on a daily basis, you have to do so many mental checks with yourself.
100%.
So many mental
I
checks.
wasn't good at doing those mental checks.
Yeah.
I was still in a very much like a scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
I was like coming from a very limited and limiting mindset. And like, had I had the insight I had now, I probably would have handled it differently. I would say my largest regret was like that I just was like kind of rude to you and then stopped talking to you. That was a regret.
It was hurtful.
Yeah.
It was
No
hurtful
shit.
because it completely caught me by surprise. I think that was the biggest shocker, is that we were great and you were holding all of this in. And so when you sent me those messages, you didn't even call me. You sent me like this whole long Megillah.
ranted.
And I remember I was in LA, it was in the summer, and we had plans that summer. We were going to go to Ojai together. We were going to go on an overnight trip together. We were going to spend the whole summer together. And he just like sent me this long message, basically, in a nutshell.
Like, was I breaking up with you?
You broke up with me.
Oh my God.
And I was just so taken aback, and I was hurt. I was so deeply hurt, and I had a really hard time moving past that, a very hard time, because I started questioning myself, and I started asking myself, like, did I actually do something wrong? Is there something I did? And which naturally is what happens, is that no one's healthy enough to say this seemed like a her problem, not a me problem.
Right,
Like, not many people do that right away. And I don't know why it is. Right away, we always turn to ourselves first and we say, hold on, like, am I innocent here or am I guilty? Did I do something wrong? But I don't know why it has to be that way, instead of she has an issue that
Or
she has to
feeling
sort
the feels about
through,
it,
and like, good riddance. And like, but obviously I don't have that sort of confidence. So I just fell apart, and I had a really hard time recovering from that. And we didn't speak for like over a year.
Yeah, over a year. I refused to like engage with your content.
Yeah,
look at your
no,
content.
I think
we had a hard break.
Follow me?
No,
Well,
I might have just. Oh,
I unfollowed.
no,
I couldn't. No, I couldn't. No,
Yeah, it
because
was
I'll tell you, I unfollowed you because you limited me.
right.
You limited me.
I think I just maybe muted.
You,
I don't
you
unfollow.
muted or limited me. So then I said, oh, I can't do this. So I just like unfollowed. And yeah. And you know how my family is. We're kind of like the mafia.
Yeah.
So my family is like, if I love somebody, they love somebody. If I hate someone, all I have to do is tell my sisters, like, oh, I don't really like that person.
Yeah.
They're
Well, your family was actually such big supporters of mine, so like that was also
Right.
that was a big regret.
Yeah, because like, we grew up together. Like,
Yeah.
you were good
Oh,
friends.
your sister older sister had hired me and utilized me so much in a creative capacity, even before other people
And you would
did.
spend perm at her house.
Yeah. I've been invited to their house. So but you know what? This is also one of the things as a big girl, right? When you fuck up, sorry, there's a fallout from that.
Yeah.
And that's something that you just have to own when you but so I know myself better now. I try to have more honest conversations with myself. And do better. I think one of the things that I make sure to do now, and I think we do this, if I'm feeling something, I have to say it. The problem is
For sure.
it was growing, it was festering. Had I maybe even had a conversation with you early on,
for sure.
we might have even just been able to snuff it out, but I didn't.
Yeah. No,
I didn't
100%.
have
That was what was the shocker of it all, is that there was no transition period. It's not like, those breakups where the breakup is coming. Yeah. There's always that period where it's we're probably going to end up breaking up in the next couple months, but it's a slow.
Right.
That didn't happen. It was just so cutthroat. And so that's why it just hit me in the face. And, but I want to talk about how we got back in touch again. And I've said this to everyone that I've spoken to about it, which is pretty much just my sisters and my mom. I didn't really talk to
I do want to say, I feel we handled it. We never dragged each other through the mud.
Never.
We each hold very deep secrets of each other's, both of us.
We do.
I really trust that we kept them.
Always.
So I want to say it was immature in some ways, but in many ways I think we handled it maturely.
100%. 100%.
I have to give myself that, or else I was an absolute shithead.
No, 100%.
I didn't have any. How sometimes when people are beefing on social media, people are beefing. People did not know. Our intimate circles, no one knew we were beefing.
And even when I would put a question box and people would say, and I would ask, who do you want me to impersonate next? Your name would always come up, and I'm like, oh, they don't know. They don't know. The people don't know.
Yeah. All right. So how we reconnected?
So how we reconnected, I have to say, till this day, I feel like I spoke about it a lot. Maybe I just repeat. Well, I had to do a lot of repetitive talks with my family to get them back on board, because my family is very you're cut off for life.
Yeah.
And I don't think we would be talking today if it wasn't for your honesty and vulnerability, which I find for women is probably one of the hardest traits that we have. I mean, anyone who has a husband knows it's very hard to apologize or to say I'm in the wrong.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I think a lot of women have to work on, where we end up excusing ourselves, where it's I know I did that, but I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for X, Y, and Z.
I did that for a year.
Right.
I knew I owed you an apology.
Right.
I made all sorts of excuses. Well, I felt like this and she was doing this.
Exactly.
But the truth of the matter is I needed to have a really frank conversation.
Exactly. And so it started when you recommended a company to me. And so the company reached out to me and they said, oh, we're reaching out to you because Adel from Life's Looking Good recommended that we would be a good fit. And I was like, oh, is this an olive branch? Is she flirting right now? What is happening? And so I reached out to you to give you a thank you. So I said, I just wanted to let you know, thank you so much. And we ended up speaking on the phone that night. And I, till this day, cannot believe how you apologized and took ownership of what happened with zero excuses, there was no justification. There was no, oh, well, but also you did this. Or it was so, I'm trying to find the word for it. I'm having a hard time finding the word for it, but.
Well, because an apology is not an apology if it comes with a but.
How
and that
often
is something
does that
people need to
happen?
know.
And I took that as a lesson for myself. I'm like, when was the last time I did that, where I just called someone and I said, you know what? I was a shithead, or I really what I did was so wrong, and I am so deeply sorry. There's so much power in that statement. It almost gave me chills. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much. That's all anybody really wants to hear.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear the why, because who cares?
Who cares?
Why?
Right.
Nobody cares why.
Right.
They don't
Also, there's never an excuse for bad behavior, in my opinion. I had to have I didn't care about my why. The what happened wasn't the point. My behavior was poor. I had to look at that. If you're and you have to have those conversations if you're to give an honest apology, because people always know when your apology is bullshit. If an apology is bullshit, it doesn't land.
It was probably till this day, one of the most genuine apologies I've ever received in my life. No, really, like the most mature, just like it's almost like it felt like you grew up over.
I think I did.
You did. I felt like you grew up, and I was like,
I had a few beefs with people on social media, and when I was honest with myself about all of it, the why was not important, the way I reacted. But again, that was like my scarcity mentality when I first came in. Also, if I'm truly honest with myself, when I first started on social media, it was my entire persona.
Right.
It was my whole identity.
Yes.
It was something I had to call my own. If I'm thinking about like my life, and maybe you can relate to this, it's like, I didn't graduate college. I didn't get a degree. I've had some success in careers, but like when you find a little bit of success in an area, you feel so threatened.
oh my God.
When it feels like someone might take that from you, even though of course nobody can take that from you.
Yeah.
But you have to, so like my persona was so wrapped up in it.
Yeah.
Whereas with time and COVID and space and peace and like going inward, which is why like all the experts will say like have some time by yourself.
Yeah.
Like because with time and space, I was like, that Instagram's not your persona, and so don't worry about it.
And it shouldn't be your whole life.
Of course.
It should not be your whole life.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was So I'm so glad that it landed for you. I know.
Oh, whew. That was nice. That was actually really nice.
I wasn't expecting to have relief from that.
That
but
was so relief. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, you ever know? Oh, it felt. But then there was like that period where we were the forbidden love. We were like the forbidden secret, and I didn't tell it was like an affair, and I joked with you about it. I'm like, I can't believe I'm like hiding a secret friend. We're like
Marcus
a
is home. I have
affair.
I have to hang
out.
out.
Exactly. Marcus is home. I can't speak right now. Because I didn't know how because everyone else, it's not that they hated you, they hated how I felt.
Of course.
And they saw how much I suffered and how much it hurt me.
Yeah.
So the people that cared about me, that's why they were just like, this is unforgivable.
Yeah.
And so we had to really baby steps. I mean, the fact that my mom even knows that we're here now is like probably
huge. I know Marcus is on track.
Oh yeah. Especially because like our men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I have two final closing questions.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right. I believe there's just two. Yeah. Okay. So do you have any advice? Like, I think there is this feeling generally for people. It's so real, needs to be talked about. I think people starting out, people that want to begin a career on social media or build up an account, even if it's not to make a career, they feel like if they don't have strong numbers, they don't have a big community, they don't have a lot of followers, they don't have a voice, they're irrelevant. What are they showing up for? They have not like any advice for people who might be feeling that, who might look at your success and be like, I want to have that. How do I achieve that? So like any advice for them or...
I mean, I follow people that have 5,000 followers that have a much larger voice than people that have like 100,000 followers. So I think one thing has nothing to do with the other. I even think that brands now are not even looking at the amount of followers you have, but the engagement.
So true.
And it's all about the engagement. So the person that has 5,000 followers might have an engagement with 5,000 people versus, the one with the larger numbers, their engagement percentage is much smaller. And that comes from being genuine.
Yeah.
So I think just to stick true to who you are and not try to do something that's trending or pleasing others, because that's just going to come off as disingenuous. It's, if you have something to say, just start talking and just say it. Or if you have something to share, just start sharing it. And then you much prefer that organic audience anyways.
Of course.
I actually miss it. And I've told you, like, my sweet spot was when I had 1,500 followers. Oh, it was so nice. Because
it's like a family.
It was like a family. I was able to respond to everybody. Now, like, if I try to at least give a heart to show that, like, I read the message, but it just doesn't feel as much of a community where the first 1,500, it felt like everybody is here rallying with each other. Everyone here likes me. There's no hate followers. There's, because you have a whole mix. You have people that are following you because they don't really like you, but they want to be snarky with their friends.
Yeah, they want to forward your stories on.
Right, exactly. And they want to just forward everything, and then there's the ones that actually like you, and there's the ones that are like, why am I still following you? So there's like the whole gamut. But in the beginning, it doesn't matter. Like, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Even if there is only like 1,000 followers, like if you're delivering something that they're receiving, that should be good enough. I mean, for me, that would be good enough.
Yeah.
I never, ever cared about my numbers.
Yeah.
Ever. So the numbers thing happened completely organically. I never signed up to any of those like giveaways where you pay them X amount of money and then you have to follow
now
that.
you are.
No, but I'm on the flip side of it where I'm like helping to advertise for it, but I'm not one of those accounts you have to follow. I will never try to like earn followers or buy followers ever, because I don't need you here.
Yucky.
Like, and also like,
Yeah.
it doesn't serve me in any way. And I think that's another reason why people resonate with me, is because I don't have this like desperation where it seems like I need you and I need to be here. And I think now it's like I could shut this down tomorrow and I'd be just as cool. Like, this is not like my livelihood. This is not my purpose.
Right.
My life is so much larger than this. So when I do show up, I feel like people are grateful that like I'm here and I'm not trying to push something on you, sell something on you.
Yeah.
So,
all right, that's a good answer. Like, show up with your authentic self.
show up as your authentic self. I mean, is there even a better answer?
No.
Is there another answer?
No, there isn't.
There isn't.
So, closing question.
Closing.
I'm asking all my guests this. In an ever increasing, uncertain world, when you start to feel like the ground is opening up underneath you or life becomes unmanageable or too difficult, what are some self-care or some practices that you do that help you find grounding, comfort?
Smoke weed. Come with it.
Same.
No. No, I'm joking. I feel like people think I've become like some sort of pothead because I
don't think that.
No.
You don't give pothead vibes.
I don't give pothead vibes.
No.
Self-care. Well, going back to the anxiety.
Or it doesn't have to be self-care. Like any practice. Doesn't have
Any
to be
practice, right.
I mean, I guess I hate the word self-care.
It's true.
It's like,
But that became like the trending tagline
because also
word.
sometimes the thing you need to do to get grounded might not feel like self-care. So that's why I don't like that word, right?
For sure.
Sometimes it's like doing the hard
work.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hard stuff sometimes, 100%. I think somebody with anxiety, I'm always seeking relief. So I have to be very in tune with myself with the things that are, I mean, I always talk about this and I hate, I've always struggled with the DMs, for example.
Yeah.
And I hate to say that because I don't want
Direct
to
message, your inbox, your Instagram inbox.
My Instagram inbox. And I don't want to say it in a way where don't message me anymore, because I do love positive feedback and I love when people share their lives, but we speak about it all the time, that it just becomes a lot, to take on thousands of people's lives on top of your own life. Like, I'm like living my life and trying to deal with my own shitty day. And like, I have 2 little babies that I'm still trying to take care of and run a house and do this all on my own, and all the other struggles that I deal with, and the internal struggles and the anxiety and the panic and all of that. And then on top of that, somebody else is like sharing their life with me who I don't even know. And I'm trying so hard to relate to that. So like, that could be a challenge for me. So I think for me, I'm trying very hard to take a step back where I'm not living for other people and I'm delivering, but then I'm also
retreating.
Exactly. So like I go out and then I come back. I go out, come back to myself. And I think that's really, really important for especially anybody that's in the social media realm, is that
or public facing
is like, there has to, you taught me about the 8 to 8.
Well, I only just started.
Yeah, the 8 to 8.
Admittedly, like I need to be better, but I actually think for me, it's more the nighttime than the morning time.
Yeah.
In the morning time, I have a bit more of a clear head and I've had some rest. Right. The nighttime, when I'm endlessly scrolling at night, it's so poisonous for me.
Yeah.
I go to bed with the worst anxiety.
100%. And I think a lot of my anxiety is triggered from the fact that like I am now carrying so many other people's lives.
Yeah.
And so I need to set a boundary. It's just like your therapist. Like, your therapist could be the most unbelievable person in the world, but you cannot message her at 1:00 in the morning.
100%.
You know what I mean? So
there's no off switch to this job.
There's no off switch. That's the problem with social media, is that there's no off switch.
You don't clock out.
You have to create that for yourself. I don't even think this had anything to do with the question.
It did, because like, what do you do to come? Like, how do you find grounding? So like, you retreat, You create a
Retreat.
little bit of distance and space
have to
from like
create that
the
distance and
digital space.
Yeah.
I call it digital because I mean it's not just one platform, but like now we're on like multiple platforms and we're scanning multiple platforms, and then even just
Yeah, no, 100%.
I like that answer. Retreating into yourself.
I mean, when social media wise, I think this would be my answer. In life, I don't know. We're all just doing our damn best.
I know.
We are all just doing our damn best. Like anyone who says like take a hot bath, I'm like, is that really gonna cure everything that's happening in your life? Like, really, did that bubble bath really do it for you? So
Yeah, I mean, like sometimes it's all you could have is that bubble
if
bath.
that's all you can have, is
Yeah.
it gonna be like the be all and end all?
Right.
Probably not. But
Right.
you go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for making this a part of your trip. I'm
course.
like I'm proud. Like I'm proud to see what you've done in your space. I'm proud to call you a friend. I'm so happy that we were able to like get through our hump and like and like I appreciate you being here today. So thank you so much.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. Yay!
I always do my little shake.
Oh my gosh.